This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. Today it's Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan. Keenan, welcome back. And we've actually got an 8-pack of NBA questions for you. So check it out. So Keenan, it's Father's Day. We actually happened to record on Mother's Day as well.
Ooh.
And I asked you, I said, Keenan, what's your favorite memory of our mother? She actually saw the episode, or at least saw that part of the pod, and was not too thrilled with our answers. She was like, I hear about me throwing a fork at Kyle, and then I hear about how not funny I am, how generic I am. So she was not too happy. So same question about our father. By the way, happy Father's Day to all the good dads out there.
We know a lot of dads, like a lot of, I was about to say, a lot of our friends are dads now. So it's not happy Father's Day to all of them. And of course, everybody, but it's crazy for all of our friends.
And happy Father's Day to our father. So Keenan, first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you about our dad or a specific story?
First thing that comes to mind is the jokester when company is over. Obviously, you well know is we've heard a story about 30 to 40 times, but it's new to everybody else, and they leave that scenario like your dad's hilarious, and I leave the scenario like I've heard about the turkey in the oven about a lot of times. But I think of that, and then I think of playing any sort of sport, especially when I was a kid, and just hearing dad in just a old gym. There's my boy. It's like, okay, Dad, I appreciate it. Thank you. Cutting over everything else in the gym. Just waits for the dead point and just as loud as possible. Those are the two first things I think about with Dad.
Yeah, he is obnoxiously loud, and I think you're being nice when you said 30 to 40 times of hearing the same story. I think you could add a 0 to each of those, honestly. What comes to mind first? First of all, our dad's a lunatic. Let me get that out the way. And I'm going to explain. This one's kind of wholesome, kind of not. I'd say it's wholesome. One memory that sticks out, Keenan, was like when you were probably, I don't know, preschool age, maybe like 3, 4, or 5. You had this phase where you liked to play checkers.
Oh, yes.
He would not let you win, which in turn I would not let you win. And then you would like... you would throw a fit, you'd throw the whole board and shit. So like that was pretty funny. Like that's a funny memory I have of my dad and you, I guess, technically. But the other one that would stick out to show like how much of a lunatic our dad is, and I think you kind of mentioned it with like hearing the same story again. You say it's nice to say 30 to 40 times. I would say 300 to 400 times. But he, once upon a time when Keenan and I were younger, there was a thunderstorm. And we had this dog.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I know who at this time might have even been a puppy, like between puppy and dog, like anywhere between 8 months to like a year to 18 months old. This dog probably was. And there was a thunderstorm, and my dad, again, I'm probably like 7. Keenan's probably like 2 or 3. Actually, now that I'm going with the ages here,
I actually semi remember this.
He decides to put a coat hanger around our dog's neck and send her out in the rain in this thunderstorm. And actually, me saying that right now, it sounds all the more meaner than like it ever was. Like, it was already terrible to do. Now it sounds psychotic and abusive, and like he should have been locked away.
But Dad doesn't deserve to be locked away. The lightning wasn't close. The lightning wasn't close. It was more just like the idea of the fact that was going on. But Dad is a loving and caring person. Let me just put it that way. He would do anything for anyone. So let's not make it seem like he really is a sociopath. Just
would do anything for anybody. Great God, but lunatic he is. So
yes.
Happy Father's Day, Pops. And then happy Father's Day to, again, like Keenan said, all of our friends who are fathers. Shouts to Winston, Joe DeZazzo, Nate, Steven, Trent, Camden. I feel like I'm forgetting one here. I feel like there's one. Chance.
Shout out to Ira, who was a new dad. Ira became a dad, I think, last week. Officially a dad, obviously. But shout outs to Ira as well. I think there are more.
Former Commissioner Ira.
I was going to say former Commissioner Ira. Yeah, I was going to say, and there's probably dads on the way here soon. So shout out to everybody. But let's get right into the NBA. You said you got an 8-pack of questions. You got a nice little EP. See what we got.
I got an 8-pack of questions. I got to say there's one in particular I'm mad at because I started this last night.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. I'm talking too much already, right? I'll give you the 8-pack. I'll tell you when I got upset at myself because, yeah. I'll just say this, Keenan, obviously for the viewers, for the listeners, I did not brief Keenan on this. So, maybe these are questions Keenan would like to answer another time, like with prep, but I think Keenan will do pretty well, honestly. I think they're actually even better off the top of the dome. So Keenan, pretty basic. What are you most impressed with in this series? What sticks out to you the most in this series right now?
The resiliency of both teams.
Okay.
I think when you get the Pacers going, obviously we've seen them come back from, it feels like insurmountable deficits in every series, but still, I don't want to make light of it because it's happened 3 other times during these playoffs. They're legitimately almost immaculate comebacks, and then Halliburton, the clutch shots that he has made throughout the entirety of the playoffs. That game 1 win was a special win. Even though it was a weird game, it just was like the Thunder were in complete control, and then the Pacers come back and they win the game. Mm-hmm. So I want to give the resiliency of the Pacers in that spot, because if you go down 0-2, every single game now feels like almost a must win. And like at least the next 2 for sure. And now they got to play around a little bit. And now, I mean, obviously it's a best of 3 now, so they would take 2-2 going back to OKC. And then OKC, 68-win team, MVP on your roster. They go down 2-1 after that very excruciating loss in game 1. They do what they're supposed to in game 2. Then they lose game 3. And they go into the fourth quarter down in game 4. And you're like, okay, if you're a true 68-win team, you're a true champion, these are the moments where you need to show up. And defensively, they showed up and they showed out. I know people complaining about calls. Sure, there were a couple here and there if you want to go back and forth with it. But they clamped down the Pacers to where they weren't scoring. Siakam didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter. So they weren't winning that game even if you give them those calls, honestly. So I want to shout, at least in my opinion, I don't think the way they were stopping the Pacers, I just don't think they were going to get points. So I want to shout out to the Thunder for that. That's resilient. That's down 2-1 on the road in what might be even a more hostile environment than OKC's crowd. Like that place is rocking, which also future like kind of sidebar. I need the Fever deep in the playoffs because they go just as live for the Fever as they do for the Pacers. So that crowd goes insane. That crowd goes insane, and you felt it when Caitlin was going off in that first half. But Kyle may bring that up, he may not. But the resiliency of both teams would be the thing I take away the most. There's different sidebars, but the resiliency.
Before I answer, I do want to reply to the fourth quarter. I thought the Thunder were resilient in game 4. I think that stuck out to me. As far as the calls go, I don't know if I agree because I thought Indy missed quite a bit of foul shots in the fourth quarter specifically, in the second half specifically. So though they did take Siakam out of the game, I thought that was a very winnable, not only fourth quarter, but second half for Indy. They were up 10 at one point.
I agree.
Midway through the third quarter. So I think they kind of choked that game away. I think we're going to look back on this game, especially if the Thunder win the series. Then we're going to look at the second half and say, hey, that was really an opportunity here.
They had a chance to even steal it at the end because obviously they got the late steal. If Benedict Mathurin just makes 3 free throws, they can foul, and then they have the ball up or down 3. And we know what they've been like all playoffs in that situation. They had a chance to pass, and maybe obviously when you are up 3, all you have to think in your head is I need to make 1. When you're only up 1, both free throws have that pressure on it. And we saw Chet earlier in the playoffs against the Nuggets in the game that Aaron Gordon won. He missed free throws. So you never know what could have happened in that situation. So I get what you're saying for sure. Indy definitely played a hand in the Thunder winning, but I think it was resilient the way that they played defense and the way that Shea was scoring in the fourth quarter. He really came alive. And He played well.
For sure. So what's impressed me the most in this series, we actually just mentioned Benedict Mathurin. I would say the combo of him and Nembhard, they've impressed me how, and it shouldn't impress me that much with Nembhard. I actually had him as like one of my favorite role players when me and Brandon did a similar exercise a couple of weeks ago with a 6 or 8 pack of questions. But when Nembhard is playing, when he's just involved, when he's not quiet, whether it's offense or defense, him along with Mathurin, I can't believe how comfortable Mathurin's looked since midway through the conference finals. Thought he was pretty up and down in the first 2 rounds. But when shit's gotten thick, especially at home, Mathurin's been not only a factor, like an important piece, a very important piece for Indy. So between those 2 guys, I think if you can get one of them going, you're probably in that game. You probably got a good chance of winning that game. If you've got both of them going along with Halliburton and Siakam, you're probably winning that game. And I feel like they alternate quite a bit. Nembhard's done a fantastic job of just making Shea uncomfortable. Obviously, they, as we've heard on the broadcast plenty of times, they've played against each other since they're 9 years old or something like that. So
that's also a factor that I don't think many media, TV media analysts are really kind of factoring in. When you know someone so well, their fakes and their moves don't really get you the same. So obviously it's different. A Halliburton sees Shea twice a year.
Team Canada teammates
absolutely.
Too. These guys have a large history together. So
when Halliburton sees Shea twice a year and is not guarding him for a majority of those games, when he gets ISO'd on him, those moves are different than when Nembhard has seen him and I've watched you develop that move. Sure. I may have talked to you about doing that move. Sure. So that kind of thing, it does make a difference. That's why late in game, they were like, hey, Nesmith, you've been playing good defense all playoffs until really this series. Come here. I want you. I don't want this Nembhard guy. I want you. So it's been interesting to see this series.
For sure. So the combination of those 2 for Indy, I've been impressed with. The 2 white boys. And this was a joke going into the series, but they have truly played a factor. TJ McConnell, obviously in game 3, you could make a case that McConnell's the reason they won in game 3 at home in Indy.
Him and Mathurin,
such a big part. He's one of these role players, and we have very few of them in the league anymore, but he's not necessarily their 6th man. I guess Benedict would be their 6th man. But he's a guy, man. Even what I just said about Benedict Mathurin and Nembhard, McConnell's a guy who's God, who used to, I'll remember the name. I think was it Fonzie Denard, who used to be a game changer for us back in the day, or Duron Harmon? It was Duron Harmon who would just always have this
yes.
Right? McConnell's kind of like him, or he's kind of like these defensive backs who can just take it to the house, man. He will have, speaking of pick sixes, that's what he was doing in game 3. He was getting these inbound steals. He was getting these, steals that led to, He's getting these steals that led to a layup. You know what I mean? He just had such momentum swinging plays. And usually that's your 6th man. Usually that's a pure offensive guy or pure defensive guy, but he does it with timely steals, timely assists. He's just such a great energy player, truly. So, and then Caruso,
I was gonna say in a different way, kind of like how J.R. Smith sometimes for the Cavs, this is just offensively, when he was just shooting threes and he'd get 7, 8 3. It just one of those role players that can just completely shift a game. And McConnell does that just in obviously a completely different way than JR, but that kind of thing. Because obviously JR was huge on those Cavs team in certain games because he would just get randomly hot. Or Danny Green in that Spurs finals run where he was just cooking from 3 the entire playoffs. So those kind of things. But yeah, go on about Caruso because he's doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, man. And Caruso, he's just been it almost seems like he's anywhere from the 2nd to 3rd most important player on the Thunder, regardless of how you rank talent, regardless of how you rank, scoring this or that. He just scored 20 for the first time this series or this whole season in the last game, and they were important buckets. And he's the player when the chips are down. Aside from SGA, he seems to really be the 2nd most important guy. And I would throw Jalen Williams in there too. J-Dubs. He's been showing up and showing out. I'm super impressed with him. Actually, he should have actually been number 1 on this. I actually didn't even write him down for most impressed, but Jalen Williams really should be because he's actually been, for sure, It's that three right there. SGA, Jalen, and Caruso have been the most consistent three this entire series for them. And Jalen Williams, who was up and down in the Denver series and up and down even in the T-Wolves series, has just been consistent and hasn't looked phased at all. And I think he's just recently old enough to drink. And, you know, the final stage does not phase him at all. So he actually really should be who I'm most impressed with. I had a few, and the last thing I had, Keenan, was Carlisle's coaching and his handle on the team, which really shouldn't be impressive because he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's been to the finals multiple times. And, you know, we've seen how great of a job he's done in this postseason. So I'm actually upset with myself because I had three things, and really it should be Jalen Williams because I come away impressed with him this entire series because I'm waiting for the bad game, and we really haven't seen it. Even when he's had bad stretches during a quarter, he seems to bounce back well. But, yeah, the combination of all those. Next question for you, unless you have any more comments on that topic.
I think we highlighted things pretty well.
What is a question, Keenan, that you have about this series? It actually doesn't even have to be the series. It can just be in the NBA in general. I won't even limit it to
I'll go this series. I'll kind of keep things this series because of the fact that I want to kind of obviously talk about these finals is how good is Halliburton would be the how lethal of a superstar is Halliburton. Because you see in game 3, he just has a complete control on the game. I think he played a good game 4. I don't think he played a great game 4. I think late game, I think it's more due to the fact that the offense for the Pacers got a little bit discombobulated from that Thunder defense, and they weren't able to get great looks. And obviously Halliburton's a guy that plays in flow and pace, and so is that team. So games 1 and 2, specifically 2, was what are we doing? Game 1, the shot wasn't falling, but 10 rebounds, 8 assists. You can at least point to that as energy. Wasn't getting to the paint in game 2. He just looked out of it. How good of a superstar is Tyrese Halliburton? Is kind of would be the biggest question that I have right now, because when he is on, he really can affect the game like some of the top superstars in the game. Obviously, he's not Jokic or anything like that, but he can pretty much get you a good shot almost every possession kind of guy. And then when he's not on and disengaged, it's what are we doing? And maybe that's some of the Thunder defense, because we see the same thing with Ant. We saw the same thing with Ant a little bit. Maybe that's just the Thunder defense and how tenacious they are in Lou Dort. But also at the same time, I think that you need to put a conservative effort out there if you're going to, especially because he hasn't played 40 minutes in a game that's not been an overtime game in these playoffs. And we know for stars like Steph, LeBron, Jokic, all the superstars will play those high minutes. So he should be a guy who is fresh coming down the stretch. And I think that's what they did a good job with Shea in game 4, is getting him his 2 to 3 minute spells to kind of get him fresh for the fourth quarter. Because in first couple games, he was a little gassed.
I actually thought I thought in the second half they sat SGA too much.
You think so? See, it was one of those. I think it's a double-edged sword.
Down 2-1. If that's me, I'm not even sitting SGA for maybe the last minute of the third quarter. If it's
you're doing the LeBron sit when the LeBron with the Cavs, the last minute, please, it's 2 possessions, and then you get the TV timeout in the second. That was the classic LeBron sit.
And that's a maybe. If I'm down 2-1, because you got to figure it's a young team. If that's a vet team, okay, and you guys have been through it, sort of thing, sure. Mm-hmm. There was times, man, I was I would not sit him there. I absolutely would not. And I don't think most teams would sit their best player there. I know OKC's a deep team.
Other than Steve Kerr, he loves to sit Steph in weird moments.
He does.
I'm always wait a sec, Steve. You're down 6. I get you're a veteran squad, but don't let this get down 11. This makes more work, but it's fair. I think that it was good that they got him minutes, but you can look at the other side of they were playing with fire. They managed to get out of it, but they were playing with fire. I think that he had more energy though in game 4 down the stretch than game 3, and maybe that's just the will of
sure, we
got to get a dub here.
Sure. And before I answer what you said about Halliburton, I agree. I saw stuff about Scott Foster and referee calls in that game, and I don't think it was a great Scott Foster game, obviously, but if you're pointing that ire towards calls that SGA was getting, I think that's ill-informed. I don't think you're watching the game if, that's your complaint. SGA didn't even have a foul shot, I don't think, until like midway through the third quarter. And I thought he was actually like, I talk about how the refs let Caruso get away with things. I think they were letting Indy all around get away with things with SGA. SGA was not getting called.
Specifically SGA, because Jalen Williams was living at the free throw line. And I felt like their drives were the same.
It felt like any time that SGA got to like 15 feet and in, that Indy would just body him and like throw him off balance, and he would not get these calls. And some of them were 50-50, but there were some I thought were outright fouls, and they didn't give them. He ended up with 10 foul shots, and as I say, he didn't get calls until the second half of the third quarter, it seemed. So maybe you do have an argument there, but I mean, it did not seem like that to me in the game. I was surprised that he ended with 10. And a lot of those were in the fourth quarter when he gets aggressive. But to answer your Halliburton point, you said the word superstar. See, his consistency is why I don't think he is a superstar yet. Ring or no ring. I think you got to bring it every single night to be a superstar. Like SGA is never below, the other night in game 3, he had 24. He was below 25. But I mean, that's super rare for him to be at 24 in a game that's of consequence. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to put the word superstar with Tyrese Halliburton because he just is inconsistent. And some of it, like you said, is the Thunder defense, but some of it's him. I mean, we saw this earlier in the playoffs where he followed up. I think that game he followed up the game winner against Cleveland. I think he had a 4-point game the very next game. And that's been Halliburton a lot of his career. He is a big game player, as we've seen. Like we've seen that more than enough this postseason. Like he clearly loves those moments when the lights are the brightest. He loves it. He relishes it, much like a former Pacer of old. But the difference between him and Reggie was every night. You know what I mean? And if he had a low scoring output, it's because he was, he was off. He might have a 4 for 22 type night, 6 for 22 type night. Whereas Halliburton, if he's off, he's not getting up even 12 shots. It's a struggle for him to get up 10 shots. He's not getting into the paint and creating for his guys. So that would be the difference with Halliburton. I'm not saying he's not on the bridge of superstar. I'm not saying he's not close, but I can't even put him with the guys like Tatum or Anthony Edwards, even though he is past where Anthony Edwards has gone in his career. It does seem like Anthony Edwards is more consistent on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah. I agree with that. I just think there was a few times these playoffs where, and I mean, he talked about being a little bit confused by some defenses, and I think that will you'll learn more. But I just feel like there are some times where he didn't have the aggression. And I also think that's because at times he doesn't have go-to moves. That makes sense. Like, obviously he can get downhill, he can shoot the 3, but like Shea, when things break down, it's okay. Give me a screen, or if not, I'm clearing out. I'm going to back down a little bit, hit you with a step back, get my 15-footer. Like, I know I can get that shot every single play. Whether it goes in or not is whether it goes in or not, but I can get it every play. And Ant doesn't have one of those moves yet. He can probably, he hasn't developed it consistently enough, at least that he's shown.
I think he has those moves. I think he just doesn't have a feel for moments.
I guess it's when to use them, but like I know he has the talent to, but I guess there's not like one move that he consistently goes to, if that makes sense. But like I think that he has the capabilities of doing. I don't think he's like, I can't shoot, or I can't do this. I just think he doesn't go to it enough. My personal opinion.
I think he is much like Tatum was at that age, where Jason Tatum had go-to moves, and I think Ant has go-to moves as well. But you just don't have a feel for the moment yet. You don't know when to pull out that mid-range shot. You don't know when to fire up threes, or if it's acceptable to shoot maybe 8 threes in the second half. I don't think he has a rhythm of the game the way like, Steph and LeBron do. Luka's always had it. That's something Luka had at a young age. Jokic has obviously always had it. I would say that's a difference. And when Tyrese is at his best, Tyrese Halliburton, that's one thing he does demonstrate is he knows when to score, when to pass. So yeah, I would say Ant, and we discussed this 2 weeks ago too, but I would say I think he does have those go-to moves. I just think it's a rhythm, feel for the game type of thing.
Fair. I think on both ends, it's I think they almost work hand in hand a little bit, but like I do know what you're saying. Like he has the capabilities of doing so. It's just that picking and choosing when he can or when he should kind of thing. And a lot of superstars have to figure that out, and not everybody comes into the game like Luka and can just put up 34 in his first series and just know, like, okay, I can go do this. And then he's been playing professional basketball since 16, so maybe at 17, 18, he had those moments. I don't know. I didn't watch overseas Luka games front to back, so I don't know if he had those moments, but maybe he did and just realized, okay, I know what I can do. Or he just was born with it. Some people are just born with it. Mike was born with it. He knew what to do, like that kind of thing.
So the question I have,
yes,
overarching question.
Yes.
If OKC, and I guess I could say win or lose, but I'm going to go with a loss here.
Yep.
If OKC were to lose this series, is this the second version of the KD, Russ, Harden Thunder, where it looks like a dynasty, but oh so close, it is not a dynasty? And why I say win or lose, I ended up, obviously I said, with a loss, but the way the fucking CBA is, the way the hard cap is, it might not even matter if they won or not. Like, they could win and they still might have to trade off one of Jalen or Chet. But if they lose, does that accelerate it?
I would say yeah. And here's why. Like, I think that they have a possibility to run off a mini dynastic run-ish, if a sense. Like obviously, I don't think they're going to do what the Heat did and go to 4 straight finals. Like, I don't think they'll do that, but I do think how the Spurs in 13-4, like that Spurs team, they went to 3 or 4 straight conference finals. They got to a finals. They got to a couple finals. They won one. They lost one. Like, they could have that kind of stretch where they're the barometer in the Western Conference, but they're not getting there every year. And because obviously Sam Presti does a great job as a GM, so making the right moves and being able to sign the right guys, draft the right guys, develop. And so I think they could be more like that. And I think this championship's super important because you have to think, obviously, the old heads, LeBron, KD, obviously we don't know where KD is going quite yet, but we think he's going to be on the move here within maybe the next 72 hours. So at least before the draft, most likely. But you have the old heads who are Steph, LeBron. They're going to try to go for a last-ditch effort, but unless they get another superstar, I mean, LeBron does, but if Steph can get another superstar by him, whatever. But you have to think the Spurs are coming with Wemby, and then you still have the Nuggets. Let's see how they retool. They still have the best player in the world, and there's just so much in the Western Conference. Anthony Edwards, we all think at some point he might get to a finals, right? Get to a finals. He's that good where we think he can get to one. So, and you're right. You got maybe 2 years left of keeping Chet and Jalen Williams. You would think you would want to keep Chet over Jalen Williams, but the way Jalen Williams is playing right now, Chet's been solid, but he hasn't been great. But Chet gives you a different dynamic compared to Jalen Williams. It's hard to find that rim protector, that really good defensive player, but also Chet's been injured. So it's a little bit, we'll see what they do. But I think with how things work out, it's going to be extremely tough. But the one thing that the Thunder have done is draft so well, and they have so many draft picks that if any team is built for it, they would be. We thought Boston would be ready for that kind of mini dynastic run there because they had these players for a couple years, but you get injured, the cap, and now they're going to be getting rid of people. They have to, because if not, they're second apron and they're paying $60 million in taxes and can't sign a soul. So they got to get rid of probably Drew Holiday, maybe Derek White. You'd want to keep Derek White. Maybe Jaylen Brown's even floating around just because the contract's so hefty, but we'll see. Porzingis, of course, if you can.
Yeah. And I mean, OKC seems like if let's say they go to 7 and lose, or let's say they lose in 6, whatever. Let's say they lose in the series. They're talented enough, they're young enough to where they could probably make it back next year if they wanted to, right? Obviously they want to, but like you said, the thing in the West is it's so loaded, it's not guaranteed. You know what I mean? It would just be a harder road next year than it was this year. So I think there's an avenue where it ends up being eerily similar to the Harden, Westbrook, Durant era, where again, we thought it was going to be.
The Heat 1-5. Those games were all close, but the Heat pulled them out, showed the veteran leadership. LeBron played extremely well. We're like, okay, that's Kevin Durant, who ends up winning an MVP 2 years later. It's Russell Westbrook obviously ends up winning an MVP. Harden who ends up winning an MVP later on different kind of ways. But it's those two. It's Serge Ibaka. It's Reggie Jackson. You're like, wait a second. This team, you're like, okay, who cares that they lost in the finals? LeBron needed his first. They'll be back. The closest they got were up 3-1 on the Warriors, and they choked that away. That was the closest they got again. Because you had Durant injured a year, Westbrook injured a year, got rid of Harden. So what happens.
Three future MVPs and one finals win. I'm telling you, nobody would have ever guessed. It gets crazier by the year. It truly does.
It does. And so, like, you think, and obviously they didn't win 68 games, but they were beating teams like the Spurs you still had a very good Tim Duncan. You still had a fine Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and obviously Greg Popovich fully healthy and on that team. They're still winning 50 games every year, drafting Kawhi Leonard. Like, that team was still really...
I think they had some crazy streak going into that Thunder series where they had lost.
Yes.
They'd won like 18 straight games dating back to the regular season or something like that. Like they had a streak. We're up 2-0 on the Thunder, and then the Thunder go off with 4 straight, with Harden being a big part of that.
That was the series that people thought Harden was going to be like him. Like, oh my goodness, like he could really be something special. But go on, what you're saying.
Comment that you have. Basketball series or otherwise, whether it's whatever it is, comment that you have.
I comment what I guess I just have a thing that I'm excited for. Is that good enough?
Sure.
Okay. I'm super excited for this NBA offseason. Like, my comment is just the NBA offseason because obviously we don't know what's happening with Giannis. Most likely he might stay now. But obviously, like, anything can change at any point. We know Kevin Durant's moving. Where is the question? We know Boston's making moves. What are they doing is the question. Obviously, the draft night, I'm not putting it past Nico to trade Cooper Flag. Can't do it. I can't do it. I was reading this one Athletic mock draft, and it was talking about trading Cooper to the Spurs for Dylan Harper and a bunch of other picks and things. And I was like, I can't put that out of the realm of possibility.
Unfortunately,
you can't put that out of the realm of possibility.
I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's going to happen at all.
I wouldn't bet it. But you know what? I wouldn't have bet that he was trading Luka this year, so I would have lost a bunch of money on that. That would have been a plus 3,000 odds for him to be like, yeah, we're trading Luka mid-season. Insane. Maybe after a season, but mid-season...
I'd say plus 42,000 would be
a mid-season Luka trade is insane. So once that happened, nothing's off the board. Nothing. But... I guess my comment would be just thinking about, I might have a better comment later on, but right now it's the NBA offseason. I might have a better one later on.
I can't wait. I'm actually going to save my comments on that because I have offseason talk coming up in this age.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll talk about it more then, but that's my, right now, that's my comment.
My comment is the much maligned ESPN broadcast. Keenan, it really is as awful as they say. And it's not that it's bad. It's not that, like, I think Doris gets a lot of flack. Mm-hmm. I think Richard Jefferson gets a lot of flack. I think they're both good. I actually think Doris Burke used to be better. I do agree that maybe I don't enjoy listening to her as much. I've heard people say that Mike Breen's taken a step back. I don't believe that. I think he's still just as good. What I will say, though, hearing Richard Jefferson and Doris Burke in the finals, more so RJ, who, again, I think RJ is really good. I do think he's a really good color commentator. It does not feel like the finals, though, when it's those three. The presentation's awful. It always has been, by the way. This isn't like just strictly to this year. I do find it interesting, though. So people have been complaining for years about, like, the finals decals no longer being on the court, like how they used to have the half court logo with the big Larry O'Brien trophy. I think it was game 2 where ESPN all of a sudden put the phony ones on the court. You know what I mean? The digital trophies. So they clearly pay attention to social media.
Adam Silver, I don't know if you saw Adam Silver speak before game 2, I want to say it was.
I saw something about how he said they took it away because of the players slipping.
Yeah, because the players slipping on it. I wasn't sure if you had seen that because he was like, the presentation, this has been like a thing for multiple years. And he's right. It's been a thing for multiple years. But the first time the finals felt like the finals was Game 3 to me.
I guess it feels like the finals. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it feels like the finals. But to answer that thing about what Adam Silver said, when he said that players were slipping on it, and they got rid of it, I guess before or after that KD LeBron finals that we were talking about, right? I don't ever remember that even being
a conversation
brought up ever. I don't ever remember, like, because it would have been like a lot of the Lakers and Celtics series. I never remember the Celtics complaining about it. I never remember Kobe or Powell complaining about it. I never even remember it being a discussion point. So that's news to me. But back to the social media point. So they put the digital trophies back on. And then around the same time, I see someone online post, some media distributor post that ESPN's thinking about replacing Doris Burke because she just gets killed all year. I would say the last 2 or 3 years specifically, more than ever, she just gets killed online specifically for her love of Embiid. But people in general just hate her analysis, which happens to every color commentator. But Doris gets like the brunt of it worse than ever. And then I see ESPN supposedly is thinking about replacing her. Like, I can't believe how many people really do pay attention that much to social media and dictate what. Yeah, you want to listen to the fans. Yes, you want to listen to the viewers, but like to let it dictate what you're actually doing, that's kind of another conversation. But in general, Keenan, like ESPN's theme song, whatever, like all the NFL theme songs, CBS, Fox, NBC, and ESPN, all four of those like get you hyped for a game. You'll see on Instagram, sometimes Twitter, they will post the NBC intros to NBA Finals games from like MJ's era, from whoever, and you feel like you're about to watch a fucking like gladiator sport, like the Romans going into the Coliseum. Like that's how they built the shit up. That's why a lot of us are so excited and hyped to see what NBC does with the presentation next year. TNT, though that's not a mainstream channel, like it's a for cable, yes it is, but I mean they don't really play anything during the day or after games aside from NBA, right? Like that's the main thing they were known for, is that, and I think golf they do sometimes. They did a good job, man, whether it was inside the NBA or just Kevin Harlan. Their games feel big. For whatever reason.
Sorry, people don't like Reggie Miller because they think he's annoying. You know what? I don't mind Reggie that much. Like, I understand sometimes he says some things where you're like, okay,
he's at
Reg.
least enthusiastic, and he makes good points when it comes to like critical points of games.
That's the thing about it. And so, and also with the ESPN broadcast, it matters. The before matters, the during matters, and the after matters.
And the after 2 out of the 3.
As I said, the after's fine. After's chilling because it's Scott Van Pelt, and if it's Scott Van Pelt, you're chilling. You're doing pretty solid. I mean, you're doing pretty solid at least.
I love Scott Van Pelt, but like next year, that's allegedly going to be inside the NBA.
Yeah, but that was getting.
I don't know how that's going to work because the whole point of ESPN is to get them to the Sports Center after. So I'm very interested to see if that's actually the case.
I was going to say that's where I was getting to.
Pre-game and the halftime's awful. It's the worst halftime show in all of sports, Keenan. Not just the NBA, all of sports. There's no way the NHL is that bad. Even Fox NFL, who has like fucking 8 people on their dash, right? Like they've got too many people talking.
Yeah.
It's at least entertaining. Like people on ESPN literally have 30 seconds to speak. So their halftime's garbage, their pre-game's garbage. It's an extension of, the first take kind of talks, like, who needs to step up, the Lakers, you know what I mean? Like you can predict what they're going to talk about. And that's actually kind of my problem sometimes with Doris and RJ, though again, I do like them. I think they're too maligned. And I would say this about actually all the ESPN broadcasts. I find too often, whether it's regular season, playoffs, whatever, I find too often they will bring up something like the whole SGA foul merchant thing. They will bring up something that's a Twitter trope and bring it to the broadcast when you don't need to do that. I'm going to take a hard left here and stick with the social media, but it's kind of on the topic because it's still basketball. Like I saw LeBron this week on that. What is it? What's the old man in the 3? Is that, or no, that's the old JJ Redick one.
No, that they start
Mind the Game
with
podcast,
Nash and Luka, and they're talking about the bag.
Yeah. What the fuck is LeBron doing responding to that? Like, bro, you're responding to people on Twitter. Like, we know you are literally the all-time leading scorer in points in regular season and playoffs. Like, we know you're LeBron James. You do not need to.
Two things. We know Kyrie has a bigger bag than LeBron. Duh. He can do literally anything. And if you're going to Rucker Park, you could take Kyrie before Bron, and we get it. That's fine. We all know that when it comes to winning games and winning championships, they're not in the same room. We understand that. Like LeBron, you're not in the same room with 95% of the league ever. We get 99. No, you're right. 90. I meant in the same room of winning games and championships. But you know what? In fairness, there's been so many players.
I would say that's still 99.
No, 99. You're literally in it with like 8 people. There's about 8 people in your room to say like, yeah, we can win games and affect games not at maybe the same, but tier wise like you. Like, we get it. You don't need to talk about your bag. I'm sorry. I don't care about it. I really don't care. You don't need to address it.
That's the thing, though. He cares. That's the one thing. Like, there's going to be a day, Keenan, within the next 2 or 3 years where LeBron's going to retire. We're going to do a retrospective on his career. That's going to be the thing. Like, him compared to KD, compared to even Kyrie, compared to a lot of these players where. I'll save this again.
Steph for sure. Like, I think what you're saying.
Yeah, like those guys all seem genuine. LeBron seems, to a degree, insecure, which is, I think, when people bring up Kobe and Mike specifically, when it pertains to LeBron James, I think that's the type of shit that, like, or even someone like Iverson, like that's the type of shit you would never see those guys do. But on top of like Steph and who we just say Kyrie. KD's sensitive. We see KD replying, but at least he replies directly. But like
Kevin Durant's funny about it though, and I think it's because I don't know. Kevin Durant's funny about it in my mind. Like it's not because you're right. It's not. I'm gonna set up this interview with Pat McAfee and do this kind of thing. It's not that for Kevin Durant. It's I see this random guy tweeting. I'm just gonna tweet back at him. I'm just gonna tweet back at. And if LeBron did that, I'd feel better about it than just like. This kind of this set up, I need to say what I'm going to say these things, and then go on with it.
Yes.
Like, I would, like, just, if you said it in the moment, like, just say if Stephen A. Smith tweeted something, or random someone tweeted something, and LeBron was just made a comment on it, and then kept it moving. I would be like, you know what? Defend yourself. I think it's a little sensitive, and we all think Durant's sensitive, but that's who Durant is. We allow it to be him. Allow that to be him.
You can tell this shit bothers LeBron. That's the thing where I'm like, I just can't imagine. Again, I'm not comparing, but like, I can't imagine Kobe ever. Can you imagine Kobe like commenting about like if someone said he couldn't go left, or if someone said like he didn't have this movement? Can you imagine Kobe even responding?
Kobe would respond as the next game going left. All game and torching. Like that would be his response. Like not like I'm going to say something, I'm going to act like it's something. He would just hear something and be like, "Oh, I hear that." Like I mean, Steph like is famously like checks Twitter at halftime if he's having a bad half to just see what everybody's saying. But he doesn't say anything about it. He doesn't like go about it. He says something probably to his teammates, but he just looks at Twitter.
If that's what gets you going, by all means.
Okay,
like, that's
fair enough. But he doesn't go after the game like, yeah, people don't think I can play defense, or people don't think I can do this or do that. It's more so just like you don't think I can play defense, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, when you laughed about it after you were up 3-1. I'm going to go put 37 on your head in game 6. Or game 7, rather. And 31, 10, and 9 in game 6 when Clay is going off for 11 threes. That's what I'm going to do. And just keep it moving. That's the way you respond with your play. And sometimes he just dresses it up a little bit too much. And that's the thing that kind of gets you. But I mean, again, we also hyper focus on LeBron too. So in some cases, even when he's not trying to do something, he does. But sometimes he feeds into that. And
I would say ESPN hyper focuses on LeBron.
I think mainstream media, for the most part, hyper focuses, and I know a lot of it. I mean, they're the worldwide leader in sports, kind of thing.
It's 2016, but ESPN is behind on a lot of things. But to continue that comment, I really wish, I'll probably say this many times on this podcast over the next, who knows, 5 to 10 years. It would have been perfect if TNT kept the NBA and ESPN was who got replaced with NBC. They will continue to have the finals from here on out. ESPN's
I would love to hear Candace on a call. Like, I love Candace talks. She knows how to add things in. Kevin Harlan gives that big game feel. And the thing that sucks is Mike Breen gives that big game feel. I was watching 06 highlights of Dwayne Wade. I love Hubie Brown. Hubie Brown gave me a big game feel to it. That's personally me. And even though people got annoyed with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy, they still gave a big game feel.
They did.
It's the same. Tony Romo gives a big game feel, even though people are getting annoyed with Tony Romo and predicting plays and loving Josh Allen and Mahomes too much or whatnot. But if it's Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, I know the game matters. And when it's Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke, and Mike Breen, doesn't always feel like the game matters. Mike Breen makes it feel like it matters, but when it's not coupled with the color commentary that makes it feel like it matters, it makes it difficult. Truly does.
It's just the whole tenor. Like, again, I think RJ and Doris are good. It's just you couple the presentation with their whack ass theme song that just sounds like just a regular commercial jingle. You just end up with a subpar product.
Like, that's just classic.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of clips circulating of Mark Jackson. You know how he used to kind of like talk the talk about, like, "Mama, there goes that man." He'd kind of like perfectly lead in from that replay into the commercial. Like, he would time it perfectly to where he's building up, and then he's got this punchline at the end. And it got kind of hokey, and it.
The rules, hand down, man down.
Exactly. And
it's classic. It's catchy. It's whatever.
And ESPN just hasn't done a good job and the league overall just hasn't done a good job at promoting these young players. But the finals, yeah, man. I mean, there's been times where I tune into a Stanley Cup game. It's been years, but I immediately can feel the seriousness of the situation. There's times me as a chronic NBA fan who hasn't missed a finals game in who knows how long, where I'm asking myself, the other night I asked myself during this game, I'm like, man, Brandon Petty's right. This really doesn't feel like a finals game. Like, I see what people are saying. Like, I can see exactly where they're coming from when they say this. And I can't say that about the NFL. Can't say that about
and
the
it's
MLB,
not the product on the floor. And it's not the because the Thunder versus Pacers series has been a fun series. Game 2, you're gonna have a blowout every now. Like, the finals have a blowout in it, but Game 1, epic comeback. Game 3, close throughout. Pacers close them out. Game 4, close throughout. It's been a very well played series with the two best teams in the league. The way they've been playing, especially the Pacers, especially since the new year. Like, and the product is there regardless if the superstars aren't on the floor. Like the box office, LeBron, Steph. Like, those guys, like, they're not on the floor. The product is there. It's, you dress it up in a way, and of course, not all you have your superstars, but at the same time, there have always been teams that, like, don't have the face of the league kind of guys, but they still, when the presentation's there, you push it. Like, Reggie Miller is not a face of the league, but Knicks, Pacers, that was obviously, I mean, Patrick Ewing was a really good player, but was he top 5 in the league? No. So, like, that's the thing. But those series felt so big because of
top 5 at that time.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I guess. I mean, Hakeem, David Robinson. I mean, Parkley. That's a different conversation. We don't have to talk. We don't have to get the top 5 players in 94, 95.
We got. I would say. All right. Yeah, I'm assuming he was first team All NBA, if not second. So, and they got to the final. So he had like that between 7.
He was probably top 10. But yeah, okay. Anyways, I mean, obviously he was out of Georgetown, the number 1 overall pick. The Knicks fell to their knees, and it was like the heavens came down when they got him. So I understand that his stardom transcended from college on. But
so yeah, I've got 5 more questions. We're
about 50 minutes in, roughly
12 minutes to an hour almost here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to speed through these quick. Keenan, what recording artist does each team remind you of? If you want me to go first, I obviously have mine written down. So if you want me to go first
and let me think about it, because I'm interested to see what you're saying.
These are pretty, I mean, I could go in depth. It's hard to, because I mean, we could choose from anybody, right? But what I've got right now, and I don't love them, but I don't hate them either. The Pacers remind me a bit of Chance the Rapper, and I'll explain. Pacers. I don't want to sound like a snobby hoop head here because that's not what I'm trying to do. But Pacers right now are kind of like a if you know team, right? Especially for you. You were big on the Pacers early, but the Pacers were in the conference finals last year. They're obviously in the finals now. They're very fun. They're extremely fun. Like you just said, Keenan, the product is not lacking on the floor. It's ESPN's presentation, but the product itself, like this is a great matchup. The Pacers and the Thunder. Chance the Rapper, acid rap era. That was a critically acclaimed mixtape. Basically an album, right? It's all original music.
Yep.
And he was at this time coming off of acid rap. He's probably a little more famous than what the Pacers are as a whole right now, like this iteration of this team. But I do think at that time, Chance and acid rap, it was kind of if you know type of project, right? And Chance was fun. He had dynamic to him.
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel when I'm watching these Pacers, right? They got Halliburton, they got Siakam, they've got fun guys like Nembhard and Mathurin. They're layered, they're tough, they're clearly tough, as we see with these comebacks, right? Just like Chance. Chance had some kind of not street anthems, but he had some harder hitting tracks, and especially than what he had later on in his career, even on Coloring Book, right? So he had hard hitting tracks, he had depressing music on there. Like acid rap was a layered album. Right. So acid rap era Chance the Rapper. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from the Pacers. Does that make any sense to you?
That does make sense to me.
All right, cool. And then
I'm also like, if you see me kind of looking down, I'm quickly scrolling through all my artists because I just want to kind of get it too, but I am paying attention. No, and that makes sense because acid rap Chance was a cult classic, if that makes sense. It wasn't like your Coloring Book was his mainstream. But right after acid rap was like that cult classic, which is kind of like the Pacers, Indiana's like, this team is amazing. And then people who really pay attention to basketball are like, this team is very, very good and underrated. And then you have other people who are like, oh, Indiana, yeah, I know what they are. Like, I understand who they are. And that's kind of Chance at that time where I was like, yeah, I've heard a Chance song or two. Like, Juice, I like Juice. But it wasn't like Chance was like, oh, he's got next kind of thing. You didn't think that in your head. Not everybody thought that in their head. And so I get what you're saying with the Pacers.
I don't love this one as much for the Thunder, but it's what I came up with, and maybe we can workshop it a little bit. But who I got for the Thunder is R&B artist, super talented, super beloved by the people who know her. And maybe you'd be a better judge of this, of how famous she is now, but I've got her for the Thunder. And I guess maybe it's more directed at SGA. But SGA is just, and I said this a couple months ago, we had some general NBA questions. Like SGA is the best scorer, I think, since Kobe. Him or Durant, I can now have up there. Actually, I don't want to discard Durant, but SGA is right there. If he's gonna be below Durant, fine, but like he's right there. I'd have him above Harden. Every time this guy pulls up for a mid-range shot and he's got a clean look, like if he's releasing before someone gets to his face, man, I think that shot's going in. I think the shot's going in. I really do. I think, I've said this about Jokic many times that like every single shot Jokic takes, I think is either going in or has a shot at going in. I pretty much feel the same way with SGA. And there's not many players I can say that about. So when you couple that with their all-time defense, right? Like it was a special year, and yeah, they were a special regular season team. It's hard to compare them to like teams of the past because of what the regular season is now, right? But you can't deny it. Like they play the game the right way. They play hard. They're a very unselfish team. SGA is unselfish. He's as good of a scorer as anybody. And I compare that to her because I think her is as talented as of an artist as anybody, especially on the R&B tip, but really across all music. But she's pretty unheralded, especially like it actually, like as I'm talking about it, it seems like she was really coming on at the end of the 2010s into the pandemic. And I feel like I really haven't heard from her in a few years. but if you just put her, like, just musically, she's as good as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Just whether it's vocally, we know she can play the guitar, but she's unheralded. And OKC, similar to Indiana. I mean, Indiana's probably a little more popular. I could be completely wrong about that, but I probably am wrong about that. SGA is probably more famous in general than anybody on the Pacers, but I feel like the Pacers as a brand are probably a little bigger than OKC.
Yeah, just because they're a basketball town.
Yeah,
like,
I could be
and
completely
OKC is
wrong about
not
that.
like the if OKC was the same exact thing, but in Seattle it'd be different.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
OKC
Those Seattle fans are amazing.
OKC did have, obviously, like we said earlier, the 3 MVPs. So I mean, they kind of do have a lineage, and they were hugely popular across the U.S. when they had those 3. So I could be completely wrong about that. And again, I don't love this comparison with her, but it's the only one I can make right now. So I'm interested to hear who you have.
Okay, so I wrote down a few. Are you ready for them, or do you want to say anything else about yours?
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the Pacers first, and I kind of have in a similar thing with her. With the Pacers, I got Anderson .Paak, and here's the reason why: because he is super versatile, he is super talented, and I think the Pacer teams are super versatile and super talented, and the people who know basketball know how great the Pacers are and what they do, and the people who know music know how great Anderson .Paak is, but to your regular common fan, they'll be like, I think I heard of him. Like, I think so. Like, or like the Pacers are like, yeah, they're good. They have Halliburton and like Siakam, I think's pretty solid. But like, they're not going to know Benedict Mathurin is a bucket and he really has came up. They're not going to think of TJ McConnell is really like a true role player. So I think Anderson .Paak is who I had written down, the first one that came to my mind. And then I was getting a couple other ones. I was thinking 2012 weekend right after Drake, like that, like where people were starting to understand how great he was, but they weren't. But he was still kind of in a bubble. That one I didn't love. And then I was thinking of a couple others ones, but Anderson .Paak is the one that I'm going with for the Pacers.
I kind of wish. I mean, you basically took him for the same reasons. I like Pac better for the Thunder than with her, or I could just take your same exact description, but I kind of like Pac better than her for the Thunder as well. I really like that, though, for the Pacers.
So, and here, this one's going to sound a little weird, but to me, the Pacers are about like the Thunder are about like a 2014 J. Cole. And here's why I say this. J. Cole came out with a bunch of like Friday Night Lights.
What year? You kind of cut off.
About 2014, so like right after 2014 Forest Hills Drive. And the reason why I say this is, and I could be a little wrong. Again, I have been thinking, and this is a quick thought exercise for me. But you get obviously the warm up in Friday Night Lights, and so you see this kid like, oh, this guy is really talented. He might got next. But no one's thinking to themselves like he is going to be Kanye or Jay-Z. Like I'm just using some of the all-time greats, because then the Thunder obviously had last season where you have your kind of growing pains, and that's Friday Night Lights into Born Sinner, where people like J. Cole, and a lot of people are like, oh, J. Cole is this. Some people are like, I don't love J. Cole, and that's some people with the Thunder. And then you get to his 2014 Forest Hills Drive, where it's his classic. And like, it's the one where you can't deny it. Some people might just hate on it, but you can't deny how great that album is for people who really like music. That's this season for the Thunder. And also, I think I was trying to project too, you think of how good is J. Cole going to go from here? Is he going to follow it up with all-time great stuff? Is he going to prove that he is truly an all-time great? Kind of like how the Thunder, are you going to prove that you're one of the all-time great teams, or was this just a peak of a season? Mm-hmm. And I think J. Cole had that kind of thing. We'll see what the Thunder are, but that's where I got J. Cole, because no one's ever going to call this Thunder team the best team of all time. But if they win, they'll have the most wins of all time. That also has to do with the fact of there's like 16 games in these playoffs you could win compared to like 15 or 14, 30, like that kind of thing. So no one's ever going to be like, this is a top 3 or 5 team of all time. Like, no one's going to say Forest Hills Drive's a top 5 album, other than people who are like young. But at the same time, it's all time great. You're going to put it up there with how it went. So that's kind of where I had. That was, again, in first thought.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot better than Her, where I really try to workshop that one. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. That's a very good comparison. And that's very good off the top of the head. So if we had to shoehorn it for picking just two, I like that acid rap era Chance for Pacers.
I like that. I do like that.
I like this Forest Hill Drive era J. Cole for the Thunder.
And I was thinking, I also wrote down Meek Mill, because I was thinking after Dreams and Nightmares, like I was thinking about his trajectory and how that, but I like J. Cole better. Like I was trying to think of people who were good and then had an all-time great, and people looked at him like, oh, could they be that? So I was thinking, like, I had that down. I thought Nicki after her Monster verse, like kind of like, oh, okay, this like she just out-rapped Jay-Z I landed on J. Cole.
Reason why I like it too, SGA and J. Cole are very similar personalities. They're both just laid back, cool guys. Like they ain't help about all that.
But also too, kind of going on that, they do get a lot of hate, because a lot of people felt like at that time J. Cole was kind of making like corny, kind of sappy music, or like in like a weird way, and it wasn't like, even though he could be obviously a really great rapper at that time, like songs like Crooked Smile, a lot of mainstream people liked it, but a lot of people who were really into music were like,
I can't stand Born Sinner. That's my least favorite J. Cole album.
I can throw it away. And that's the foul merchant kind of thing with Shea, where you're like, he's a great player, but is he really that great without the free throws kind of thing? You get people saying that. But then also you see, like, you, who understands basketball, are like, take out the free throws, he can still get you 30 every night. Yeah. Like, kind of thing.
I don't even think it's like me understanding basketball. Like, I think like, and I've said it a million times, and I don't want to stick too much to it, but like there's just so much, the way people talk about the NBA compared to any other sport, literally any other sport, is like I really wonder, like what would Iverson and Kobe and KG and Timmy, Dirk, right? And Dirk's someone who was much maligned. Dirk was very much maligned, like the way James Harden is in the postseason before he won that ring. Like,
yep.
But what would that, like, people, we could still appreciate that Dirk was a amazing scorer, amazing shooter. Like people, again, and I think we're just talking to like that, that subsection of Twitter that LeBron was talking to, but you see it a lot, like with people on Ball Is Life, or all these Instagram basketball profiles where people like take what people are saying and then post it as content, with like him being a foul merchant, where I truly, Keenan, like I feel like Brunson's way worse than SGA when it comes to faking the foul.
Trae Young is terrible.
Trae Young's a
Harden was terrible with it. And people just like forgot, and just people forgot about it. Like,
Harden was the absolute worst I've ever seen. He's the GOAT at enticing fouls. I'm not saying SGA never does it, but as I said here before, any scorer ever, whether it's KD,
Wade, Kobe, Wade, like they both did it.
Everyone's gonna search for fouls. AI, all of these guys are gonna search for fouls. They're gonna get calls. LeBron, it's gonna happen. Giannis, they all do it. But to make it seem like SGA's like prime Harden, or to make it seem like even Reggie, like Reggie was a flopper. Not to an egregious degree, but Manu Ginobili was a flopper. Like, for people to put SGA in that category, I think it's a little insane. Moving along here, though, we got a few more questions. Keenan, 3 games left. Best of 3.
By the way,
what's up?
I like that question. By the way, it was an interesting one. That was not what I thought you were going with, and I like the question. Sorry,
for sure. Best of 3. 3 games left. You had to put 5 on it. If there's one thing you would just stamp it right now that's going to happen in this 3-game set, tell me.
So if I had, obviously I still have my Pacers in 7 pick, but if I had to make a bet, it'd probably be along the lines of Shea is going to average like 35 over this next. Wow. Like I think Shea understands this moment, but I also think that Shea scoring 35 isn't a guaranteed win, especially like Jalen Williams and Chat have to go along. And Jalen Williams has been great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying Shea possible. That's 35 is not. And then I'd also put 5 that Halliburton's going to have a great game. I don't know when it's going to be quite yet, but it's going to be
he. Pick one.
If I had to pick a game, I think it'll be.
No. You got to pick one out of.
Shea's my bet. Shea's the bet because I think Shea's the easier one. But Halliburton having a great game would be the secondary bet, and I would honestly bet it's going to be one of the 2 OKC games because I think it's going 7 regardless.
You kind of stepped on it, Keenan. That was actually mine. I think between these next 3 games, I think we're going to get a signature Halliburton game. Maybe not to the level of the 32, 12, and 15 triple-double with no turnovers, but I think he will have his best game of the series. I'm going to say in game 6, I think the Thunder win tomorrow. I'm very interested to see how tomorrow goes. I love do or die game 5s. They might even be my favorite games of playoff series, especially when it's 2-2, even at 3-1. I feel like you just get so much clarity out of a game 5. You get so much, one way or another, you're getting a desperate team. Whether it's 2-2, whether it's 3-1, you're getting desperation, right? So I love game 5s. I'm very interested because Indiana did not play well in game 1. They win at the buzzer, but they didn't play well, I would say. They played good. They played clearly good enough, but I don't think they played a great game like they did in game 3. And I thought they even played pretty great in game 4. I thought those were fantastically played games in Indiana. Game 2, they lose by double digits, right? So they didn't have 2 good games in OKC, and they still come away 1-1. So I'm interested. Are they going to lose by double digits tomorrow and kind of say, all right, you got us, and we're going to go put all our eggs in the basket for game 6, and then, they're going to have 2 or 3 days off before that game 7 on Sunday? Or is tomorrow going to be just a classic game that the Pacers steal? Or they just lose close?
I actually think it's I know a lot of people like home and home, and then game 7's game 7. I actually think it's road. For some reason,
I can't see it. I cannot see it.
It's hard because you would think OKC losing. I mean, because I have them winning in game 7. It's like OKC losing at home 3 times. But actually, now that I think about it too, OKC is 5-4 now on the road, but they're like almost undefeated at home. So
if the Pacers win tomorrow, I think the Pacers win in 6, right? If the Thunder win tomorrow, I think the Pacers win game 6. I think we win a game 7. And if the Pacers were to lose in game 6, Keenan, I think it's in a classic game. Like, I think we get the Pacers' best shot, and I think the Thunder win by, a basket or maybe by 4 points. Ultimately, I do think it goes 7. Keenan, I told Brandon Petty, I texted him during game 3 when it was clear the Pacers were going to win, or when it looked like the Pacers had a good chance. I don't know the exact text, but I said, hey, if the Pacers go on to win this and they go up 2-1, I think I'm taking the Pacers in 7. Like, I think I would just like them in a big game situation more. And I still think I do like them in a big game situation, game 7 more. Thing is, like you said, Thunder are basically undefeated at home, damn near. The 2 losses are at the buzzer, and every other win is by double digits, seemingly. But hey, man, like we said before the series, and I still feel this way going into game 5, you could tell me almost any outcome. I do think it's going to be home, and then, game 7 to set it up. But
you genuinely could tell me Pacers in 6, Thunder in 6, Pacers in 7, Thunder in 7. I see a world for all of them, and I understand that people think Pacers in 6. No, but you're going to try to tell me that they have
Pacers find a way to win tomorrow.
If Halliburton has one of those 25-point triple doubles, and Neesmith, I mean, we watched Neesmith go off for 5 threes in the last 4 minutes of it. Like, it's just, if they do something like that, they have this magic that they can pull out. So, but we can move on to your next question because, yeah.
So, Keenan, my next question. Desmond Bain got traded today, and a shocker. You don't usually see trades during the NBA Finals, especially with a player of Desmond Bain's caliber. I won't go through the full details, but I think the gist of it is 4 unprotected picks to Memphis. There might have been a player or so involved. I really don't know. I looked at it briefly.
Oh, I can give you it really quick. It was Contavious Caldwell Pope, Cole right, Anthony, 4 underprotected picks, and then a pick swap for Desmond Bain.
Real quick, I'll give my opinion. I know it's supposed to be me asking you, but I'll give my opinion very quickly. I think it's a great trade for both sides. I think 4 picks is a lot for Desmond Bain. I think the East is wide open. I thought Orlando was going to be a contender this year. Obviously, they got banged up. But listen, man, Desmond Bain is a dog. Jalen Suggs is a dog. Paolo is a dog. Franz is a dog. Is a Vog. Say it in German, right?
Franz Wagner is a Vog.
Bain is he fits that identity greatly, and he can shoot. KCP's a good shooter, but like weirdly, he doesn't get up a lot of threes, as many threes as you would think. I definitely don't think he was a problem, but they clearly upgraded at that position. Whereas now OKC gets a little deeper with Cole Anthony. I didn't even realize Cole Anthony was in that trade. So you get him and KCP in that Bain spot and 4 picks to build around Ja and Triple J. You got to do that. I was shocked because, I think that's a big 3 you'd want to build around is Ja, Desmond, Bain, and Triple J. But if you can get 4 unprotected picks, even if it is the Orlando Magic, who we think are going to be competitive, you kind of got to go for that. And I don't know if these picks were, of other teams as well via trade. I don't know if they're all strictly Orlando's or if they're via, whoever. But I think it's weirdly a good trade for both teams. But if you're Orlando, Rudy Gobert, that trade, you included, a ton of people call that the worst trade in NBA history. They make the conference finals twice. I did not love the Mikal Bridges trade, 5 first-round picks. They did make the conference finals this year, so they at least got to make the conference finals at some point during the Desmond Bain era to make this trade make sense. Otherwise, it could be a light disaster. I won't say all the way disaster because they do have a lot of young talent. But the way the East is next year with Tatum being out, with the Celtics seemingly being out of the picture, and you really just at this moment right now having to worry about the Cavs and the Pacers and maybe the Knicks, who we'll talk about in a sec. Really 3 teams to worry about. It's a great trade. And again, Bain fits exactly the attitude and the tenor of that team. I love it for them. But the first round picks is interesting for sure. I would not have guessed that for a Desmond Bain package.
Yeah. So the, just to give you I looked it up real quick, just to give you the exact picks. It's the 16th pick in this year's draft, unprotected 2028 and 30 picks. 2030 picks from Orlando, top 2 protected 2029, and then an unprotected 2026, which is it's a weird, complicated one on that one apparently. But I think I'm with you. I like the trade for the Magic. I'm going to talk about them before I talk about the Grizzlies. With the Magic, you now get a guy who can really be like the 3rd best player on a championship level team. So you obviously on some nights he could be number 2. Especially in a weaker Eastern Conference that doesn't have the Boston Celtics and they'll be a good team, don't get me wrong. I think Boston just has enough pieces to be a good team, but they're not going to be a great team and they shouldn't get to the finals or anything along those lines. You got the Pacers, you of course got to take them seriously. Conference finals last year, Halliburton gets out, and then this year they're in the finals and they possibly could win it all. We still don't know. The Knicks, they got to the conference finals. We'll see what they do this offseason with the move, with the coach. We'll see. They're asking everybody and their grandmother, hey, can you want to coach for us? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. But and then obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the Bucks. If Giannis is there, they can make it a little tough. But the East is not a strong conference. It now puts them in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference. You've got Paolo. He takes the next step. He could be a top 15 player roughly in the league. And you have that. You have Franz, who's been playing well. You get Desmond Bain. You have Jalen Suggs. You get Wendell Carter. You might get Mo Wagner, but you do have a pick at 25. So you could take a big there. There's multiple bigs that could be there at that spot. Or you can go get a guy like Walter Clayton off the bench to replace Cole Anthony, a veteran point guard from college who obviously just won a national championship. I like where Orlando is. On the Grizzlies side, they floated, Bleacher Report floated out right afterwards 3 possible trades, just a possible trade if they do for Ja Morant. And instantly in my head, I was say, I don't think they're going to trade Ja Morant, but instantly in my head, I was like, them doing this, I don't know if this is a retool or a rebuild. And if it is a rebuild, they could take, if they get an offer, they could take something. I don't know. My instant thought was, when I was talking trades, was a trade with Brooklyn, and it would be for the 8th pick, Cam Johnson, a few first-round picks in the future because they've got multiple. That was just kind of the thought if you go and kind of trade Ja Morant and retool. But regardless of if they do that or they don't do that, you have Ja Morant, you get KCP, who is a champion, 2-time champion actually, has played in big moments, big series. If you can get him back to his shooting, you've got depth on that Grizzlies team, and then you've got Jaren Jackson Jr. So, and then plus you get picks for the future. At 16, you can get an actual impact kind of bench player within a year or two. Obviously, it's hard for rookies to fully translate, but within 2 years, you can get an impact player. I like what happened with the Grizzlies. I think at some point you kind of had to break it up. And I didn't like it depended on who you were trading. In my opinion, I think after a while you got your max the second round and you lost in 6 to the Warriors. And I didn't see that team going back and being a finals contender. I thought at some point you got to shake up the well. It's kind of the same thing with Portland. When Portland had McCollum and Lillard, where you're like, that's a good team, and if everything falls right, and then they peaked with a conference finals sweep against the Warriors, and you were like, at some point we got to break it up. And I think I don't like to wait too long. I'm a person that's kind of progressive though, in that kind of stuff. I'm actually like a.
So I mean, with the Grizzlies, they're so young. Triple J, Ja, and Bain. And a lot of their core guys, like off the bench, are young too. And this is why I was so against Taylor Jenkins getting fired. I thought they had a good thing going. I think they've had bad injury luck. But I don't think I don't think this has been a thing where it's like, oh, you run these guys out there every year and they just can't get it done. I mean, these guys are still pretty early on in their careers. I mean, low key, what, Ja and Zion? It is low key like what, year 6 or 7 for them. So maybe not super young. Maybe they're right in the primes, but no way. There's no way Ja Morant's getting traded. I think the difference between him and someone like maybe Trae Young, whereas Trae Young is popular in Atlanta and he's popular, across the league or, with fans in general, he's popular. But like Ja Morant's the most popular Memphis athlete they've had. And that's including like Gasol and Zach Randolph and Tony Allen and all those guys. Like Ja Morant is not only Memphis the franchise, but Memphis the city. So I don't see them moving off of Ja Morant unless he has another gun incident or like they need to move off of him. Similar to Iverson and Philly. They didn't move off of him until they absolutely had to. Until it was absolutely over, they did not ship him to Detroit. I see that being the thing with Ja Morant. If it ends up being a Zion Williamson situation where this guy cannot stay on the court, which again has been the case the last 2 years, then yeah, maybe. But
those are the things that I get interested with of what kind of ownership you have and what kind of GMs do you have? Like, are they in the boat of like, he's got more value now than what we think he might or something along those lines, and so you trade him early even though it could be hairy to try to get people? Because, I mean, a lot of people love this draft because it's so deeply talented, and if you can get a top 5 player in this draft, top 8 player in this draft, you can get a true guy who could be not a cornerstone of a franchise, but a true player in your franchise. So it's just interesting what people and how they value it. I don't assume Ja Morant to get traded, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but I don't assume it to happen. For me personally.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Ja got traded. I don't see it. I mean, we said that about Luka, but Ja, there's never been any inkling that Memphis would even want to trade him. So I don't see that happening. Next question, though. New York Knicks. What the hell is going on with their coaching search? What are your opinions on it? Because I have many thoughts on
it's just, what are we doing?
Knicks.
Like, we're just, I mean, I get, like, we're just going to ask every single coach that's not, like, we know they're not going to leave. Like, Spoelstra's not going to leave and Kerr's not going to leave. And, like, but, like, after that, hey, Chris Finch, what's going on? You all right? Ime Udoka. I understand you got a young roster there. You all right? And we were talking about this coaching thing. Like, we understand that New York is the mecca of basketball and they're such a big team and it's a big job, but that's huge responsibility. And if you don't win instantly, like that's the thing that's going to be different. You don't have a long runway. Where in the coaches that they asked for, Jason Kidd now has a much longer runway because you traded Luka and now you're getting Cooper Flag. Obviously, Anthony Davis, like if you didn't have Cooper Flag and you got like the 8th pick and then you had to make something because obviously Anthony Davis and that shortens your timeline, but Cooper Flag lengthens your timeline. Ime Udoka, his timeline has definitely some give to it because they're a super young team. Amen Thompson's not even like half of the player that he possibly could be at this point. And he's still great. So like those kind of Chris Finch has Anthony Edwards. Like, why are you going to leave Anthony Edwards? I mean, Jalen Brunson's great, but he's not Anthony Edwards. And you're going to leave for Cat Towns. You already coached Cat. Like, like it's just the coaches that they're asking. It doesn't even make sense. And obviously, Jay Wright said he doesn't want to go to that. That's fine. That's what he wants to do. I think that there's championship coaches out there, but then I also think like, are you really upgrading a lot from Tom Thibodeau to Mike Malone, Budenholzer, or Taylor Jenkins or anything? Like, is that upgrading or is that just a lateral move that hopefully a new voice can change things? Like, so like, it's just like, if you didn't have a full plan of like, we know we can get kind of this guy, I wouldn't have fired Tip. Like, that's where it comes down to. Like, I just wouldn't have fired him. Like, if this is what your coaching search was going to be, like, hey, 25 of the 30 teams, we're just going to ask about your coach. And then afterwards, we might go get somebody else in free agency. I wouldn't have fired him. That's me personally, though.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's exactly it. To me, it seems like they didn't have a plan. And this kind of goes in line with what I said after they fired Tibbs, right? It's like, okay, all right, you fired the guy who got you to the conference finals in a year where you really weren't supposed to make the conference finals. Like everybody had Boston winning. And who knows what happens if Tatum stays healthy. But let's say Tatum stays healthy and they win, right? You're going to fire Tibbs. And for all intents and purposes, Tatum, when he got injured, right? Like it still looked like the Knicks were going to win that game. You're still probably going to go up 3-0, right? If Tatum's Achilles stays intact, right? Why? What was the point of firing Tibbs? I mean, I guess it was an unhappy locker room, but like,
if you're going to fire him, honestly, do the same thing the Grizzlies and the Nuggets did and fire him before the playoffs. So the playoff run whatever the playoff run happens, you don't have to say, oh, now we got to keep him. Because now obviously you don't have to keep him, but now it just looks like, what are we doing? You have to get a whole new system, the continuity, you got to build that again, and we'll see who's there as a coach. And the coaches that are out there are not like, we're players coaches that like the locker room's going. Like Mike Malone is not like the players coach. That was some of the problem in Denver. Taylor Jenkins was fine, but I mean, he had problems with people in the locker room too. Like there's not like there's player coaches out there where you're like, oh, either he's that or like there's a brilliant mind. Like in football, Ben Johnson was like, oh, Ben Johnson, like kind of thing. Oh, that's for me too.
To me, it's not even about a player's coach. Like, you know, you have that in the
or
league.
Or proven coach.
You know, for me, it's like, well, all these candidates they want, whether it's Mike Malone, like Tibbs is always, anywhere he's gone, Tibbs has had problems with people in the front office. And that's exactly what happened with Taylor Jenkins. That's why he got fired. And that's why Mike Malone ultimately got fired. And to me, it's like, all right, you better have the full court press of going after Mike Malone after firing Tibbs and after striking out on all these guys, like you said, who already have teams. But for me, Keenan, like now, okay, we see they're gonna interview not only Taylor Jenkins but Mike Brown, who, depending on the team, is a good coach to me. I thought he did great with Kings, and I thought he was unfairly fired by the Sacramento Kings, but they're a joke of a franchise. Keenan, the Knicks, if you remember, I forget if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It was after the trade deadline. I came on here and said, hey, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, like they're going to be a bona fide contender. Like like this is the most complete, the most well run I've seen the Knicks run in my lifetime, really. Like they finally got their shit together. Like it's going to be cool to see. Like, but hey, 2 or 3 years, like they're really going to be going for it. We're at that timeline now, right? They are going for it. They were just in the conference finals, but man, I said this again when Tibbs got fired. I feel like that trade was too early for Cat. I feel like they could have done that this year. And I feel like if they never do that, they're probably in the driver's seat for Giannis, where Giannis might be like, hey, yeah, maybe it's time to leave the Bucks. Right?
Financially, they have more money because Julius Randle has a player option this year for $30 million. Or Karl Anthony Towns is going to be making like 54.
Hey,
something along those lines.
He's making an insane amount.
He's making bank. And so like you get more roster flexibility. And I understand, but like Dante DiVincenzo, that's a real player. That's a real playoff player.
Can you mention players? You mentioned players coach. I mean, I've heard a lot of the dissension is about having Rick Brunson on the sideline and him, being on the sideline when his son's playing and the son's the best player on the team. I say that to say, man, like I think the Knicks are like, if I had to look into my crystal ball, man, I think this Knicks era is going to be over before it starts. And I think firing
this
Tibbs
year's
was a big
probably
part
the
of it.
best year they're going to have.
I just don't see like they could very well do well next year. They could very well get a bench next year. If they get a bench, cool. But you got to make the right hiring. Whoever you hire has to do better than Tibbs, bar none. You made it to game 6, which means you could have made it to a game 7 of the conference finals. All right. So you fire Tibbs, who's regardless already an established coach, already probably an elite coach. Right. So you fire him. Whoever comes in's got to do better. And Brunson and Cat have to be better. You have to round out the team. If not, man, yeah, it's going to be over in 2 or 3 years. And that's being nice, closer to 2 probably, with how this league works now with this weird cap situation and the second apron and all that. So, I mean, I don't know. They're going to get a blessing next year with, again, the Celtics being down and the East being wide open. But between this whole Rick Brunson thing, apparently having a lot of power in the building with his son being the best player, between firing Tibbs, and again, I think it was a good trade. Like, I think it worked out for them with Cat, but I just think it was a year early. They could have done that this year. And more importantly, they could have put all those picks that they used for Mikal Bridges and all those picks they used for Towns and the players they used for Towns. You could have had the best haul for Giannis, which everyone thought they were gearing up for anyway. So I don't really understand what the Knicks are doing, but I am fascinated by it. Any last comments to that, Keenan? Because I got one more question.
No, just get to this last question. I don't need to spend this much time on the Knicks.
KD, Keenan. Where's KD going? What's your prediction?
Oh my goodness gracious. I actually have no idea. So here's the thing. I thought it was going to be San Antonio, but the Suns aren't happy with San Antonio's package because they don't want to they don't want put Jeremy Sohan in the deal. It's Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and then may get a pick out, the 14th pick in this year's draft. And then from the Rockets, they want Jabari Smith and Jalen Green. I know Jabari Smith is kind of like their focus, but they would like both. If they trade with Miami, does Miami really have enough to give them? And then obviously if in the Kevin Durant spot, I guess if I had to say a team, I think it's Miami. If I think I have to say a team, I honestly think at this point, from me obviously doing Spurs Digest and seeing everything the Spurs are, the Spurs aren't going to overpay for him, and I don't think the Suns are going to take their offer. Their offer is going to be Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, in either maybe Harrison Barnes or Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson in a pick. And they want multiple firsts plus those players, and the Spurs are not going to give that up for a guy they have to pay $54 million to this year, and they might not even extend. And they could trade Devin Vassell and go get a Naz Reid style role player. I know Naz Reid is going to be a free agent most likely, but they can give a Naz Reid style role player and just be fine with the number 2 pick, the number 14th pick. And they have depth in the future. They have a superstar, a star. Dylan Harper possibly could become a star. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think Houston, it sounds good, but I'd honestly think Miami. And I think it's going to be Kevin Durant's going to be in a situation where people feel like, okay, that big 3 might be something. And then it comes down to Kevin Durant, hey, can you actually get it done? Can you be the best player on a championship team still? And you don't know.
Yeah. So for the 3 teams he gave, right? Rockets, Spurs, Heat. I always laugh when I see these ex-player preferred destinations is this, and we're supposed to take it as those are the only 3 teams he's going to, right?
There's 6 or 7. There was a report. There's 6 to 8 teams that are willing to, because there are multiple teams that are actually fine with doing the Kawhi Leonard and taking him for a year, trying to go. So Golden State's in the thought of maybe they're hey, let's get Kevin Durant for a year, try this thing again, and if not, we'll let him walk. Jimmy's obviously on an extension, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, man. I don't. if you're asking me out of those three, out of the Spurs, Houston, and the Heat, I would give the two Texas teams the nod over Miami. I just don't know what Miami would offer in a Kevin Durant trade.
See, that's the thing that makes it tough because I don't think you can keep Hero. I don't know how you're going to keep Hero, Bam, because it would really have to be Khalil Ware, who they want to keep, Jovic, 20th pick in this year's draft, another first-round pick. And Miami doesn't want to give up Khalil Ware. So, like, that's where that comes into. But you obviously want to keep Bam and Hero to get the Bam, Hero, Kevin Durant kind of pairing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami's kind of fucked in general with what they can do. They're pretty limited, whether that's KD or whether that's whoever in this offseason. I just don't think they have a lot of assets.
They don't.
I think they'll be fine overall as a team. Like, I think that actually could bode well for them. I think their guys could develop even more this year to where they become even better trade assets. But I thought it was interesting. Those three were the teams, Miami and the two Texas teams, because what do they all have in common? No income tax. So that seems to be what's most important to KD, for that to be his three.
In warm weather, too.
And warm weather. So, yeah, that's cool that those are his three. And if you're giving me those three, I think Miami has the least percentage of landing him. And I think ultimately it will be, if we're talking about just those two, I think it ultimately will be either Houston or San Antonio. And I would say San Antonio probably. Both have assets that they can give up without really digging into their team. So I would give the nod, if you had to San Antonio, especially having Wemby there, and you can really be young and old at the same time and not really cost anything as far as their future goes. But if it's not the Spurs and if it's not Houston, I think it'll be some mystery team, whether it's the Warriors, whether it's the Clippers, whether it's maybe the Knicks, whoever it is. I don't think it'll be Miami, but my gun to my head, it would be Texas teams and or whoever. Whoever's got the best asset. Whoever's got the best trade package. And by the way, Dallas has some pieces you can throw if we want to talk about Texas. So I really think if the league's smart, and who knows, again, trades are so much different now than they were even 4 years ago, where you can't just match the salaries and package it.
I forgot Wiggins for the Heat. Sorry, my bad. I forgot. That was the guy. There was another guy I was thinking of. I just forgot to say his name.
Whoever is the best trade package, ultimately that's what the Suns should do. I hope they don't acquiesce KD to whatever the hell he wants between those three teams. I hate when teams do that. Because at the end of the day, you got to find the best package. You got to find what's best for your team. And by the way, you still got Devin Booker there, who looks to actually want to be there. No one could blame him if Booker was the one who wanted out. Like, he should be their priority here. So you got to find what's best for Devin Booker's future and your new head coach ultimately. So, but gun to my head, if out of all those teams and Spurs being on his list, I think the Spurs can offer the best, and I think Houston can too. But they're a little weird because I feel like they're very close to contending. The Jalen Green Devin Booker fit doesn't make much sense to me, but hey.
It doesn't.
Keenan, that was fun. Had an 8-pack of questions. Any final thoughts?
OKC Game 5, Indiana Game 6. You've talked me into that, and then Game 7 we'll talk about before.
You flipped.
OKC in a classic Game 5. Indiana fights back in a very good Game 6, and then I think we'll talk about Game 7 when we get to it.
I'm torn. I'm very torn. I think my heart and my head both. Okay, my head says that OKC pulls away tomorrow. Pacers win a classic Game 6. Like, I think Game 6 will be insane, regardless, win or lose for the Pacers tomorrow. And then that we get 7. And I told you, as I texted Brandon Petty saying I was leaning Pacers. Now I truly don't know. I truly do not know. I think I trust the Pacers in a big game more than OKC just because of the games they've been in. Granted, OKC had a Game 7 against Jokic and Murray and handled them. But I think they were banged up. There is parts of me, Keenan, that still wonders during this playoff run. I'm like, man, what if – I know MPJ was banged up, but, man, what if Aaron Gordon was healthy for that Game 7? Like, how much – is that at least just a competitive game into the third quarter? And then what do we get, But, yeah, I'll stick with it. Look, Thunder tomorrow. Pacers in a tight game 6, and then game 7, like you said, we'll talk about. But to me, I really couldn't even make a pick. I would lean Pacers.
I need to see what the 2 games look like, and then I'll tell you.
I would lean Pacers by the slightest of margins, because man, OKC showed a lot down the stretch in game 4. But let's hope for a classic game 5 and 6. But I think tomorrow will be like 8 to 12 point victory for the Thunder. Wild game 6, wild your boy Halliburton game. Big Siakam game too. I think we get a big Siakam Halliburton game, and then one of, as we said, or maybe 2 of Benedict Mathurin, Nembhard, and McConnell. I think you'll get 2 out of the 3 in that game 6, setting up a game 7, and we need it. We need it as Hoops fans. We need a game 7. It's been since 2016, right? That was the last game 7. Warriors Cavs.
Yep.
So yeah, we need it. That's almost a decade. That's 9 years. So yeah, give us the game 7. Bring the NBA back. Send the NBC, Amazon, ESPN era off into a fresh start with the game 7 between OKC and Indiana.
And as I say, we'll see. And you guys will be seeing a different clip of me talking, Kyle and I talking, and kind of going back and forth with Halliburton. I guess Halliburton's now becoming my guy, and let him have a great moment in game 7. Kyle, I tell you what, all the way up.
We'll see. We shall see. And look out for a game show that we've got. We don't know when it'll release. We're recording it. This is the Sunday before the game. We are recording the game show. We have no clue what Tim Gray has in store for us, but we have a game show tomorrow before game 5. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Again, we don't know when that'll actually release. It'll be sometime this coming week for sure, but could be the Tuesday, could be the Wednesday, could be the Friday if we decide to drop it then.
We'll figure it out.
Cannot wait. Listen, this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. This was a lot of fun. This was Kyle and Keenan. We will be back very soon. You might even see me tomorrow post-game, depending on how game 5 goes. You might see me the rest of the series post-game. We'll see. We'll be back. Be safe. Happy Father's Day to all who celebrate. Peace.